Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Can I ask you to kindly take your seats? Dear colleagues, let's start this part session. Please take your seats. So, welcome back to Strasbourg. Like we did last time, we will take any points of order that are not to do with the agenda after the motion of censure debate. I have a few announcements to make, and then I will ask you all to stand and join me in a solemn moment at the end. First of all, as we mark 35 years since German reunification, we are joined today by the President of the German Bundestag, Julia Klöckner, who is with us in the diplomatic gallery. Thank you for being with us. The reunification of Germany was a defining moment in European history that symbolized hope, transformation and the enduring power of freedom. It showed what people determined to live in democracy can achieve and what politics, diplomacy and courage can deliver. That moment paved the way for a stronger, more united Europe, and it is that spirit of 1990 that we need to recapture as we face the challenges of today. So, liebe Julia, sehr geehrte Frau Präsidentin, herzlich willkommen. Now, dear colleagues, over the last weeks, the world marked 3 years since the killing of 22-year-old Jina Mahsa Amini at the hands of the Iranian police. Her death sparked the Women Life Freedom movement, honoured by this Parliament with the 2023 Sakharov Prize. Jina Mahsa Amini's life and legacy live on in the spirit of all those who stood up over the last years and in all those who are still pushing for liberty in Iran. I am proud that this House has stood on the right side of history and that the brave women and men standing up to repression know that they are not alone. Dear colleagues, last month we all witnessed the shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk during an event on an American university campus. He was 31 years old and was known to anyone with a social media account. This senseless act of murder should be treated with dignity, and I would urge everyone to avoid political theatre or cheap point scoring. Let me also say that this assassination underscores the need for all of us in public life to do what we can to dial down the divisive rhetoric and demonisation aimed at political opponents. We can all do better. Violence has no place in society. Words and ideas, not weapons and not hate, must shape our dialogue. We've seen it time and again across the world with horrific consequences. We saw it in Utah last month. We saw it in Minnesota in June with Melissa and Mark Hortman. We are not immune to it in Europe either. That is not the way. Political violence can have no room in our societies and communities. And dear colleagues, we have been reminded only last week of how violence and hatred can reach into our own communities with the deadly attack on a synagogue in Manchester on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. I know that our thoughts are with the families and loved ones of the victims and the wider community impacted in Manchester. This House stands proudly against anti-Semitism, against all forms of hatred and extremism, and in solidarity with the people of the United Kingdom. Now, dear colleagues, tomorrow marks 2 years since the horrific 7th of October terrorist attacks in Israel by Hamas that saw 1,200 people killed and 251 people taken hostage, many of whom remain in the tunnels of Gaza. It is a day that will live forever in infamy in the history of our time. The attack ignited a cycle of war and violence that has claimed the lives of tens of thousands, with the situation on the ground remaining critical. So much has been destroyed. So many now know hunger and war. For all those mothers waiting for 730 days for any news of the fate of their children, the concept of time has become another burden for them to carry. There is a real and comprehensive peace plan now on the table that provides a framework towards peace, stability and reconstruction in Gaza, that could finally see the return home of all those hostages still in Hamas tunnels, that keeps a two-state solution alive and that eases the suffering we see. I know that we will debate this later this session, but it is a pivotal moment that can finally bring an end to the intergenerational cycle of bloodshed, of terror and violence. There is a clear alternative to perpetual war, and that alternative must be seized. So, dear colleagues, as we remember all those lost, I invite you to join me in observing a moment of silence. Thank you. So the session adjourned on 11th of September 2025 is reopened. The minutes and the texts adopted of the sitting of 11th of September are available. Are there any comments? No, then the minutes are approved. The competent authorities of Germany have notified me of the election of Martin Günther to the European Parliament, replacing Carola Rackete, with effect from 16 September 2025. I welcome our new colleague and recall that he takes his seat in Parliament and its bodies in full enjoyment of his rights, pending the verification of his credentials. Welcome. Following the election of Filip Turek to the Czech Parliament, we take note of the vacancy of his seat from the 4th of October 2025 in accordance with the rules of procedure. The competent authorities of Poland have addressed requests to me for the parliamentary immunity of Gregor Braun and Tomasz Buczek to be waived. The competent authorities of Greece have addressed a request to me for the parliamentary immunity of Nikos Pappas to be waived. These requests are referred to the Committee on Legal Affairs. The Committee on Legal Affairs has concluded that the assignment of Rasmus Andresen as a member of the Executive Board of the European Centre for Minority Issues proposed by the Danish Minister of Higher Education and Science is compatible with the Act of 20 September 1976. The PFE, ECR, Renew and the Left groups have notified me of decisions relating to changes to appointments within committees and delegations. These decisions will be set out in the minutes of today's sitting and take effect on the date of this announcement. Several committees have decided to enter interinstitutional negotiations pursuant to Rule 72, paragraph 1 of our rules. The reports which constitute the mandate for the negotiations are available on the plenary webpage, and the titles will be published in the minutes of the sitting. Pursuant to Rule 72, paragraph 2, members of political groups reaching at least the medium threshold may request in writing by tomorrow, 7th October at midnight, that the decisions be put to the vote. If no request for a vote in Parliament is made within the deadline, the committees may start the negotiations. The AFET and TRAN committees have transmitted 3 co-regenda to texts adopted by the Parliament. Pursuant to Rule 251, these co-regenda will be deemed approved unless no later than 24 hours after their announcement a request is made by a political group or members reaching at least the low threshold that they be put to the vote. The co-regenda are available on the plenary webpage. Their titles will be published in the minutes of this sitting. I'd like to inform you that since the adjournment of Parliament session on the 11th of September, I have signed, together with the President of the Council, 2 acts adopted under the ordinary legislative procedure in accordance with Rule 81 of our rules. I'd also like to inform you that on Wednesday I shall sign, together with the President of the Council, 6 acts adopted under the ordinary legislative procedure. The titles of the act will be published in the minutes of this sitting. We now come to the order of business. The final draft agenda, as adopted by the Conference of Presidents on the 1st of October pursuant to Rule 163, has been distributed. For Tuesday, tomorrow, the Greens Group has requested that a Commission statement on forceful interpretation of the global Sumud flotilla delivering humanitarian aid by the Israeli military forces, the need to respect international law and the unlawful blockade of the Gaza Strip be added as a second point in the afternoon. As a consequence, the sitting would be extended to 11. I give the floor to Benedetta Scuderi to move the request on behalf of the Greens Group. Okay.
Me and other 400 people, including 4 members of this parliament, were kidnapped by Israel in international waters. This is a grave violation of international and maritime law. We were forcibly taken to Ashdod, illegally detained, checked and denied basic rights. Participants were brought to a high-security prison, deprived of water, food, sleep and medication, in some cases physically attacked. Our only fault? Bringing humanitarian aid to a population in famine and doing what these institutions and many other governments are not doing, pretending the respect of international law and human dignity. Our only fault was humanity. We could not stand still while watching a live-stream genocide in Gaza and the Israel violations. What we experience is just a glimpse of what Palestinians experience every day while we are here discussing whether or not we should put sanctions. Our colleague Rima San and Emma Furro are still not back. Another flotilla with the MEP Melissa Camara is now approaching Gaza. If Europe still wants to call itself a guarantor of democracy and human rights, we should strongly react to this violation and support the mission. Therefore, I request to add the
Thank you. Your time is up.
Forceful
Thank you. So, I have also received a proposal I have also received a proposal from the Left Group that a Commission statement on interception, seizure and illegal arrest of the crew of the global Sumud flotilla on its mission to break the humanitarian blockade of Gaza be added as a second point in the afternoon. I give the floor to Mr. Weimers to speak against. Wait. Go.
Ladies and gentlemen, should we have a debate on Greta's Gaza grifting boat? I think not. I urge colleagues to vote against this stunt from the Greens and the left. They call it a humanitarian mission. There were more selfie sticks than actual aid on those boats. And even the organizers couldn't unite. The coordinator Khaled Boujema resigned over LGBT activists aboard. What a perfect symbol of progressive incoherence. Preaching tolerance while heading to Hamas-run Gaza that jails or executes them. Chicken for KFC coming home to roost, I suppose.
Okay.
And the hypocrisy peaks here. Egypt, too, is imposing a blockade on Gaza for the same reason, to stop arms smuggling. On that, what do we hear from the left? Crickets. Maybe we should have a debate about green left MEPs turning the Mediterranean into a gadget dump, chucking smart...
Okay, your time is up. So I will put the request of the Greens group to the vote by roll call. Vote is open. Vote is closed. No majority, so the agenda is unchanged. Therefore, the agenda is adopted. The order of business is thus established. The next item on the agenda is joint motion concerning motion of censure on the Commission. I would like to inform members that there will only be one round of political group speakers for this debate. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. I did not put the request of the left group to a vote by roll call. Sorry, Ms. Aubry. So we now vote. We go back. We have not adopted the agenda yet. So we have to put the request of the left group to a vote by roll call. Vote is open. Okay, vote is closed. Rejected, no majority. Okay. For this debate concerning the motion of censure on the Commission, as we had last time, only one round of political group speakers, no catch the eye, and no blue cards will be accepted. I start by giving the floor to the first signatory, Jordan Bardella. 3 minutes.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente von der Leyen, voilà 6 longues années que l'Union européenne, sous votre présidence, s'est engagée dans une fuite en avant vertigineuse. Une fuite en avant commerciale d'abord, dont les accords avec le Mercosur et les États-Unis sont le triste symbole. Face à l'Amérique de Trump, vous n'avez pas seulement convenu d'un accord sans contrepartie, vous avez signé la reddition commerciale de l'Europe. Pendant que les autres puissances défendent bec et ongles leurs intérêts, vous avez tous cédé à nos concurrents, nos fermes, nos usines et bien sûr nos emplois. Une fuite en avant financière ensuite. Vous proposez un budget européen en hausse de 86%, tandis que nos peuples sont appelés partout à se serrer la ceinture. Dans le même temps, vous sabotez la politique agricole commune en privant nos agriculteurs de 24% de leurs moyens de survie. S'il y avait là le moindre doute sur la considération que vous portez à nos agriculteurs, celui-ci est désormais levé. Une fuite en avant bureaucratique également. 22 000 textes de normes supplémentaires en 5 ans, 11 nouveaux textes par jour. En faisant de l'Europe la championne du monde de la paperasse, vous punissez nos entreprises en les contraignant à une décroissance qui signera à terme leur disparition. L'histoire retiendra, Madame, que pour la première fois depuis 50 ans, la balance agricole française sera déficitaire et que vous aurez, pour de nombreuses années, tué l'industrie automobile européenne. Une fuite en avant migratoire aussi, avec le pacte européen pour les migrations qui force les nations, sous peine de sanctions financières, à accueillir toujours plus de migrants dans nos communes. Une fuite en avant politique enfin, avec toujours plus d'élargissements insensés. Demain, à ce rythme, la Turquie étrangère à notre civilisation prendra place à cette table. Ce jour-là, il ne restera rien de l'idée européenne, sinon un drapeau sans âme et une frontière étendue à la Syrie, à l'Iran et à l'Irak. Vous voulez, Madame, en finir avec l'unanimité. Vous rêvez d'une Europe sans peuple ni gouvernement, avec juste vous, Madame, vos commissaires payés 28 000 € par mois et votre administration pléthorique. L'Europe, nous le disons, n'est pas une machine administrative. C'est une civilisation. Et une civilisation ne se gouverne pas par des normes, mais par le consentement des peuples libres et des nations qui la composent. À mes collègues français issus des Républicains et du PPE, je veux vous dire que cette motion de censure est un moment de vérité. Vous ne pouvez pas faire les yeux doux à nos agriculteurs à Paris, mais refuser la censure à Strasbourg. Voter la censure de cette Commission européenne, ce n'est pas détruire l'Europe, c'est au contraire la sauver. Alors, pour nous, patriotes, une chose est sûre. Nous voterons en notre âme et conscience pour la censure, par devoir, contre l'Europe de Macron, contre l'Europe d'Ursula von der Leyen, mais par-dessus tout, pour que vive l'Europe des nations libres.
Merci. Now I give the floor to the first signatory of the second motion, Manon Aubry. 3 minutes.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Madame von der Leyen, vous devez partir. Vous avez accompagné le génocide à Gaza par votre lâcheté et votre inaction. Vous avez laissé des dizaines de milliers de civils et d'enfants mourir sous les bombes israéliennes. Vous refusez toujours de cesser toute relation commerciale avec Israël et d'acter un embargo sur les armes alors que nous en sommes au 19e paquet de sanctions contre la Russie. Comment vous, puissants de ce monde, pouvez-vous regarder sans bouger un peuple entier se faire décimer, des enfants être affamés, un territoire entier être calciné? Madame von der Leyen, vous devez partir. Vous avez capitulé face à Donald Trump, non seulement en soutenant son plan néocolonial pour Gaza, mais aussi en cédant sur toute la ligne aux intérêts économiques des États-Unis au détriment des Européens. En signant sans aucun mandat démocratique un accord à sens unique, vous avez accepté la vassalisation de l'Union européenne à un régime en voie de fascisation. Madame von der Leyen, vous devez partir. Vous êtes aussi passée en force au mépris de la démocratie sur l'accord de libre-échange avec le Mercosur, en contournant le vote des parlements nationaux et l'unanimité des États membres. Avec cet accord, vous allez tuer notre agriculture, nous empoisonner à coups de pesticides dangereux et saccager la planète. Madame von der Leyen, vous devez partir, car c'est un fait. Depuis 1 an, votre nouveau mandat est placé sous le signe du renoncement écologique. J'en veux pour exemple le devoir de vigilance des multinationales qui tient les entreprises responsables de leur violation des droits humains et dommages à l'environnement. Votre priorité, Madame von der Leyen, le détricoter sous les applaudissements de la droite et l'extrême droite de cet hémicycle. L'extrême droite, justement, parlons-en. Elle répand partout sa haine et promeut les idées les plus abjectes, criminalisation de l'avortement, recul sur les droits des femmes, ciblage des minorités LGBT, attaque contre les migrants, coup de canif dans l'état de droit, et j'en passe. Et c'est pourtant avec cette extrême droite que vous, à droite de l'hémicycle, vous, Monsieur Manfred Weber, avez choisi de construire nombre de vos majorités. Alors, la motion de censure déposée par le groupe de Jordan Bardella en est d'autant plus hypocrite. Madame von der Leyen, vous devez partir. Partout en Europe, les peuples tirent la langue, galèrent à payer leurs factures, perdent leur travail. Ils voient le délitement de leurs services publics sous le joug de votre austérité budgétaire. Parce que de l'argent, vous en trouvez pour les chars d'assaut. Oui, mais pas pour les hôpitaux. Madame von der Leyen, 60% des Européens souhaitent vous voir censurer. Vous devez partir. Cette motion de censure est aussi un moment de clarification politique entre ceux qui veulent poursuivre votre politique délétère au service d'un petit nombre et ceux qui mènent la bataille contre vous. Aux collègues des groupes des Verts et socialistes de cet hémicycle, je voudrais vous demander, qu'avez-vous gagné en 1 an de mandat et votre alignement sur les orientations de Madame von der Leyen, si ce n'est la complicité face au génocide, le passage en force sur les accords de libre-échange et les renoncements écologiques et sociaux. Okay. Madame von der Leyen, vous devez partir. Collègues, choisissez.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, for 10 minutes.
President Metsola, honourable members. The world is in the most precarious and perilous state it has been in for decades, and Europe is on high alert. From reckless airspace incursions to attempts at economic coercions, from ruthless attacks on Ukraine to direct threats to our own security. Europe is threatened from the east, it is challenged from within, And for the Global South, what we do next is being scrutinized closely. As we saw at the recent United Nations General Assembly, the existing international order is threatened by splintering faster than we expected. The point I'm making here is that we are in a period of maximum uncertainty and explosive volatility. This chaotic and threatening landscape was the reason I started my State of the Union address by saying, Europe is in a fight. And it is why on that day I made a pitch for unity. Today I want to reaffirm my commitment to work with all of you to keep that unity inside this Parliament, among Member States and between our institutions. The point of this unity is not necessarily for all of us to agree on every detail. In fact, tension and debate is an inherent and important part of policy making. But perhaps more than ever before, it is about the bigger picture, about rallying around the things we do have in common to deliver for the Europeans in this dangerous world, to bolster our security, to protect our democracy, to support our industry, to strengthen our social model. The point I'm making is that we need to focus on what really matters, which is to deliver for Europeans. Because, honourable members, the truth is that our adversaries are not only ready to exploit any divisions, they are actively inciting those divisions in the first place. Just look at the last few weeks. On the same day as we met here to discuss the State of the Union, 24 Russian drones entered the Polish airspace. We've seen Russian fighter jets pushing boundaries above Estonian airspace. And we have seen a number of drones in the skies above Europe causing disruption at our airports. And look at what happened in Sochi just last week, where Putin gave his annual Valdai Club speech. We should listen very carefully to his words. He put the blame on Europe for his continued war of aggression in Ukraine. He crowed about what he coined as the cracks of the edifice of Europe and the shaken unity within our union. He's not hiding his contempt for our union and the foundation it is built on, and he is not hiding his glee and support for all of his obedient friends in Europe who are doing his work for him. This is the oldest trick in the book. Sow division, spread disinformation, create a scapegoat, all to turn Europeans against each other, to try to lower our guard while we fight each other, to weaken our resolve and our resilience. This is a trap, and we simply cannot fail for it. The strongest message we can send instead is that of unity. Whether we are working on our defence readiness, or building our democracy shield, on boosting our competitiveness, or on creating quality jobs for all in today's modern economy, this is what we need to focus on. And this is what myself and the entire college here by my side want to work on with this House. Honourable members, of course I know there are some of you who are still unsure how to vote later this week, but who are also concerned about some of the issues these motions mention in passing, whether on Gaza or Ukraine, trade or the United States. I know that they come from a place of genuine and legitimate concerns. And there are other topics that are causing worries concerning our economic security, like dependencies, cost of living, bureaucracy, food security, climate change, how to protect our democracies and societies. The list is long. This is why I want to renew my pledge that this college will engage with you in whatever format is needed to try to find the answers together. I believe it is a common responsibility that we all have in this dangerous moment in history, and I know that this House is ready to take on its responsibility to deliver for Europeans when it matters the most. And you can count on me and this Commission to share that responsibility with you, because the message we send now will reverberate around Europe and beyond. And I believe that message must be a message of unity and that Europe stands together and it delivers together. Thank you, and long live Europe.
Thank you. Thank you, President von der Leyen. And now for the EPP Group, Manfred Weber. 3 minutes.
Madam President, Parliament, Madam President, Commission, dear Commissioners, dear colleagues, the second time in a few weeks, I have to say it is becoming a little bit ridiculous. A motion of censure is a serious tool for a parliament, an important right to defend a democratic Europe. Currently, this last resort of a parliament is being misused by you as a simple propaganda tool, and I hope you have collected enough video material now for your French campaign, obviously taking place here. The EPP will vote against. We are living in turbulent times: war, trade, energy, housing, climate change. That are the issues that people care. First of all, also for my group, competitiveness. Yes, we can have different opinions, no doubt about this, but we have to work now. We need stability and have to work. And we have a Commission exactly doing this, working and delivering. And for us as EPP, it's clear we support our Commission. And Ursula, let me also thank you personally. All leaders face in this moment of time enormous challenges. Leaders are fundamentally challenged in times of big changes. And that's why thank you for your service. We support again our Commission President and also our Commission for their work. And it's funny to see that we have today an initiative from the right extreme and from the left extremes joining forces. You should consider probably to join in one group, and I have already a group name for this initiative. We can call it WAA, and that is We Are Against, because that is exactly what you are showing every day. You have no idea, but showing where you are against. And let me just use one example in your common commitment. The US trade agreement. You know, when we speak about the US trade deal, you both criticized it. My first consideration is, where was then Viktor Orban, Alice Weidel, Le Pen, Salvini, when Ursula von der Leyen was fighting for European workers, farmers and business? They were silent. Orban was caring about his luxury holiday villa. Le Pen was concerned about the court cases on the table. And Salvini was swimming in plastic floating toys. That were the pictures of the PFE representatives during summer. And now you are lecturing us. You are those people who have strong ties with MAGA. So what are you doing for us in this moment of time? So that is my first consideration. The second consideration is about, you are telling us that the nation state is much stronger than the European Union as a whole. You know, look to Switzerland. They still have 39% of tariffs. Look to the situation there. They have now a fundamental debate about chlorine chicken import. Ursula von der Leyen defended 50% and that's it, even for pharmaceutical. A big success in the last days. And we made clear that legislation for the European market is made here in this European Parliament, not in Washington, not in Silicon Valley. That it was achieved by under the leadership of Ursula von der Leyen and Šefčovič. So thank you for your service in these issues. I will not go in further content arguments, because you are fighting against any trade agreement, against any security architecture, against responsibility in the fight against climate change. That's a reality. PFE and left, you both are united in your love of destruction. The EPP loves to build up, to achieve, to construct. We are the party of European integration. We will continue under the leadership of this strong Commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the S&D, to Irache García Pérez. 4 minutes.
Gracias, presidenta. ¿Podemos permitirnos una Europa bloqueada cuando Putin intensifica su guerra contra Ucrania y lanza incursiones en territorio europeo? ¿Podemos quedarnos inmóviles cuando Trump ha declarado una guerra comercial contra nuestros trabajadores? ¿Podemos quedarnos callados frente al genocidio que Netanyahu comete contra el pueblo palestino? ¿O podemos cerrar los ojos mientras millones de familias esperan nuestra respuesta ante problemas como la vivienda o los salarios? La respuesta es sencilla. No podemos. Pero quiero dejar algunos mensajes claros también en este debate, señora von der Leyen. La Comisión Europea no puede sostenerse sobre aquellos que convierten la muleta a quienes niegan el cambio climático, que mata a nuestros ciudadanos y arrasa nuestros territorios, de quienes niegan la violencia machista que cada año cuesta la vida a miles de mujeres y de quienes arrebatan el derecho al aborto, de quienes aplauden el plan genocida de Netanyahu mientras extermina al pueblo palestino o de quienes convierten la vivienda en un negocio especulativo para los fondos buitre. Esa no es la Europa que necesitamos, esa es la Europa que necesitamos derrocar. Señora Aubry, al grupo de Left, sobre Gaza compartimos la misma posición. Condenamos el genocidio y exigimos el fin inmediato de la impunidad de Netanyahu. Pero hay algo que nos diferencia a nosotros los socialistas y a ustedes, y es que ustedes han renunciado a la negociación como vía para lograr resultados. Y en lugar de seguir presionando para adoptar medidas concretas ante el genocidio, proponen una moción que saben que fracasará y que solo puede salir adelante con los votos de la extrema derecha. Creo que es importante tener en cuenta eso, pero también, señora von der Leyen, ser conscientes de que cada uno de nosotros a nivel individual no somos nada. Usted no es Europa. Por supuesto, yo tampoco soy Europa. Ni lo es este edificio, ni lo es el Berlemont, ni siquiera el Consejo ni los primeros ministros. Europa somos todos los ciudadanos y ciudadanas, y por eso exijo hoy que escuchemos las voces de cientos de miles de ciudadanos y ciudadanas europeas que han tomado las calles en Ámsterdam, en Berlín, en Madrid, en Milán, en toda Europa pidiendo el fin del genocidio. Escuchemos esas voces. Sin el papel del Grupo Socialdemócrata, la Comisión jamás habría asumido compromisos tan relevantes como la suspensión de la parte comercial del acuerdo con Israel y las sanciones contra el gobierno de Netanyahu, el rechazo a ceder ante Trump en defensa de nuestra soberanía digital, la presentación de un plan europeo de viviendas asequibles o el compromiso de mantener la neutralidad climática. Frente al grito vacío de la extrema derecha y ante una izquierda que hace tiempo renunció a negociar, nuestra respuesta es clara. El diálogo, la negociación y el compromiso son los que dan frutos para mejorar la vida de los ciudadanos y las ciudadanas. Por eso, señora von der Leyen, también mi advertencia es clara. Tienen que elegir entre sus enemigos antieuropeos o sus aliados europeos. Y que quede claro, nuestro apoyo no es incondicional. Depende de usted. Solo tendrá nuestro apoyo si cumple con las promesas acordadas. Queremos ver sus promesas en el programa de trabajo que la Comisión debe presentar en noviembre, porque la socialdemocracia no aceptará que Europa sea encadenada al fanatismo, a la injusticia o a la mentira. Nuestra Europa es la de la paz frente a la guerra, la de la justicia frente al genocidio, la de la solidaridad frente al egoísmo y de la dignidad frente a la especulación, la de la igualdad frente a la discriminación. Esa es la Europa que jamás dejaremos caer. Esa es la Europa que los socialdemócratas defendemos. Muchas gracias.
For the PFP Group Kinga Gál, 2 minutes.
Elnök asszony, az Európai Unió ma gyengébb, mint valaha. Az Európai Bizottság által kezdeményezett hibás döntések sora teszi tönkre a kontinens gazdaságát, fenyegeti a polgárok biztonságát és kezdi ki a tagállami szuverenitást. Ön a mielőbbi béke helyett még több fegyvert és szankciót sürget. A határaink védelme helyett egy rossz migrációs paktumot erőltet. A zöld megállapodással, rossz kereskedelmi megállapodásokkal meggyengítette Európa versenyképességét, magukra hagyva a családokat, gazdákat és vállalkozásokat. Ukrajna gyorsított csatlakozásával veszélyezteti az unió biztonságát és gazdagságát. A demokrácia alapelveinek, a szabályoknak a betartása és betartatása ideológiai alapú lett. Miközben a bizottság elnökének működéséből hiányzik az átláthatóság és az elszámoltathatóság, a jogállamiságot politikai fegyverként használják. Visszatartanak uniós forrásokat és kettős mércét alkalmaznak demokratikusan megválasztott kormányokkal szemben. A vélemények sokszínűsége helyett a más vélemények elhallgattatása zajlik. Ön az unió helyzetét elemző beszédében megerősítette, nem kíván irányt változtatni. Mindez árt az európai együttműködésnek. Ez az Európai Bizottság mára maga lett a probléma. Elnök asszony, a polgárok bizalma folyamatosan csökken. Mondom ezt Manfred Webernek, aki láthatóan Orbán-fóbiában szenved. Egyre nagyobb számban látják be az európai polgárok, 2 napja épp Csehországban, amikor patriótákra szavaztak, hogy jövőjük forog kockán. Mindezért mi, patrióták, épp Európa érdekében változást követelünk. Üzenetünk világos. Ideje távozni.
Thank you, Ms. Gál. Now for the ECR Group, Nicola Procaccini, 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Grazie Presidente. 2 mozioni con lo stesso obiettivo. Alcuni argomenti sono diversi, altri sono uguali. Nella mozione dell'estrema sinistra il focus è sulla questione israelo-palestinese. Non una sola parola di condanna di Hamas. Non un solo riferimento agli ostaggi israeliani vivi e morti o all'eccidio del 7 ottobre di cui domani ricorrono i 2 anni. La condanna di Israele invece è assoluta, persino violenta. E nell'invocare delle sanzioni contro Israele, la mozione finisce anche con solidarizzare con la Russia di Putin. Un altro passaggio che merita di essere sottolineato è quello in cui si lamenta la mancata risposta di questa Commissione alla crisi climatica e alla crisi sociale. È interessante notare come non si colga il nesso causa-effetto che c'è tra il Green Deal e un malessere sociale che effettivamente esiste ed è uno dei motivi per cui i popoli europei stanno votando per la destra e non per la sinistra. Bisogna avere il cervello pieno di ideologie per non comprendere questa cosa così evidente. Fortunatamente questa evidenza c'è nell'altra mozione che discutiamo oggi. Ci sono anche delle giuste critiche al deficit di trasparenza da parte della Commissione e alla sua tendenza ad invadere le competenze nazionali stabilite nei trattati dell'Unione Europea. Ci sono invece 2 temi su cui le mozioni che arrivano dalle 2 estremità del Parlamento convergono. La critica all'accordo commerciale con il Sud America, e però qui le cose sono un po' più complicate, perché è certamente vantaggioso poter esportare i nostri prodotti senza dazi su un mercato con 700 milioni di consumatori. Il problema c'è per gli agricoltori e gli allevatori europei, che proprio il Green Deal ha gravato di pesi e limitazioni schiaccianti. Sarebbe una beffa per loro dover competere con chi dall'altra parte dell'oceano non è tenuto a rispettare le stesse folli regole. Questo è inaccettabile. E poi c'è la critica all'accordo con l'amministrazione Trump. Non si tratta chiaramente dell'accordo perfetto, ma del migliore possibile, considerato che il mercato americano è il migliore al mondo per le nostre merci e che una guerra commerciale con il nostro alleato geopolitico può augurarsela solo chi odia il presidente Trump più di quanto ami il proprio popolo. Nell'ECR ogni delegazione nazionale sarà libera di decidere il proprio voto in base alle ragioni e agli interessi del proprio popolo. Per noi conservatori l'Unione Europea non sarà mai un carcere, ma un'alleanza di nazioni che non soffoca le loro aspirazioni, ma le realizza con la cooperazione e non con l'imposizione.
Grazie. Now I give the floor to Valérie Ayé, 3.5 minutes.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, deux nouvelles motions de censure, de plus, deux motions déposées par les deux extrêmes de cet hémicycle, mais qui se rejoignent sur de nombreux points, ça a été dit par mes collègues. Des extrémistes et des populistes alliés aux pires ennemis de l'Europe. Des ingénieurs du chaos qui veulent abattre l'Union européenne de l'intérieur. Ils manipulent le concept de liberté d'expression dans le seul but de multiplier les discours de haine. Ils créent des incidents de séance qu'ils relaient aussitôt sur leurs réseaux sociaux. Ils instrumentalisent le pouvoir de censure pour s'offrir une tribune. J'en veux pour preuve l'hypocrisie et la malhonnêteté des deux auteurs de ces motions de censure. Votre hypocrisie et votre malhonnêteté, Jordan Bardella, quand vous vous plaignez de Donald Trump alors que vous avez été l'un de ses premiers supporters. Votre hypocrisie et votre malhonnêteté, Manon Aubry, alors que vous vous dites que nous n'avons rien fait contre le gouvernement de Benyamin Netanyahou. Madame von der Leyen, il y a 3 semaines, a proposé des actions. Et vous n'avez pas soutenu la résolution que nous avons négociée et votée dans ce Parlement lors de la dernière plénière. Voilà leur vrai visage. Voilà le vrai visage des populistes. Ce sont des provocateurs. Ce sont des trolls. Et il y a une règle simple avec les trolls. On ne les nourrit pas. On ne leur donne pas l'occasion d'exister. On ne compose pas avec eux. Alors, Madame la Présidente, bien sûr, Renew ne votera pas ces motions de censure. Renew ne les votera pas, mais ça ne veut pas dire pour autant que tout va bien. Parce que depuis la première motion de censure de juillet dernier, on ne peut pas dire qu'on ait réellement fait de progrès dans ce Parlement. La majorité pro-européenne qui vous a élu fonctionne mal. Toujours aussi mal. Alors il est temps, Madame la Présidente, pour vous et votre collège, d'investir davantage les relations avec ce Parlement. Mais ce n'est pas tout. Et je le dis ici à mes collègues du PPE et des socialistes. Ne regardez pas à vos extrêmes. Arrêtez de leur donner du crédit en votant leurs amendements. Regardez au centre. C'est là que ça se passe. Parce que, Madame la Présidente, chers collègues, nous avons du travail. Nous avons des urgences existentielles. Il y a une guerre d'agression en Ukraine. Il y a une guerre culturelle qui assiège nos démocraties. Il y a une guerre commerciale et économique menée contre l'Union européenne. Il nous faut, chers collègues, continuer à faire face à Poutine. Il nous faut retrouver notre unité pour protéger nos démocraties. Il nous faut retrouver notre unité pour répondre aux défis de notre compétitivité. Madame la Présidente, ce qu'on veut maintenant, ce sont des actes, du concret, des résultats pour les Européens. Moi, je vous le dis encore ce week-end, j'ai des chefs d'entreprise qui me disent « Mais comment ça se fait qu'on est si lent ? Comment ça se fait que Donald Trump, en moins d'1 an de mandat, a réussi à faire tant ? Comment ça se fait ?»
The shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk during an event on an American university campus. He was 31 years old and was known to anyone with a social media account. This senseless act of murder should be treated with dignity, and I would urge everyone to avoid political theatre or cheap point scoring. Let me also say that this assassination underscores the need for all of us in public life to do what we can to dial down the divisive rhetoric and demonisation aimed at political opponents. We can all do better. Violence has no place in society. Words and ideas, not weapons and not hate, must shape our dialogue. We've seen it time and again across the world with horrific consequences. We saw it in Utah last month. We saw it in Minnesota in June with Melissa and Mark Hortman. We are not immune to it in Europe either. That is not the way. Political violence can have no room in our societies and communities. And dear colleagues, we have been reminded only last week of how violence and hatred can reach into our own communities with the deadly attack on a synagogue in Manchester on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. I know that our thoughts are with the families and loved ones of the victims and the wider community impacted in Manchester. This House stands proudly against anti-Semitism, against all forms of hatred and extremism, and in solidarity with the people of the United Kingdom. Now, dear colleagues, tomorrow marks 2 years since the horrific 7th of October terrorist attacks in Israel by Hamas that saw 1,200 people killed and 251 people taken hostage, many of whom remain in the tunnels of Gaza. It is a day that will live forever in infamy in the history of our time. The attack ignited a cycle of war and violence that has claimed the lives of tens of thousands, with the situation on the ground remaining critical. So much has been destroyed. So many now know hunger and war. For all those mothers waiting for 730 days for any news of the fate of their children, the concept of time has become another burden for them to carry. There is a real and comprehensive peace plan now on the table that provides a framework towards peace, stability and reconstruction in Gaza, that could finally see the return home of all those hostages still in Hamas tunnels, that keeps a two-state solution alive and that eases the suffering we see. I know that we will debate this later this session, but it is a pivotal moment that can finally bring an end to the intergenerational cycle of bloodshed, of terror and violence. There is a clear alternative to perpetual war, and that alternative must be seized. So, dear colleagues, as we remember all those lost, I invite you to join me in observing a moment of silence. Thank you. So the session adjourned on 11th of September 2025 is reopened. The minutes and the text adopted